Hey everyone, welcome to another video interview. Today we went and spoke with, well actually not we, it was me because Trotty's not here today. Went across town here in Mooresville and talked to a gentleman by the name of Kevin. Kevin's got a couple of national championships running in amateur motorsports. He runs with a group called NASA, National Auto Sports Association. And we talked to Kevin about, well, again, I talked to Kevin a little bit about how he got started, gave us a few tips, and he made us a guarantee. So I'll let Kevin tell you.
I guarantee you're going to be faster than the guy at the water cooler on Monday.
How long have you had your car?
Bought it in 2009. Yeah.
What'd you have before this?
Mustang Cobras. So I switched platforms and brands. It's not a secret. Had an epiphany September 9th, something like that, September 10th of 2009. Every time I had a 99 Mustang Cobra that when I first started doing this had 554 horsepower at the ground, supercharged, everything else. It was an 11-second drag car with some good suspension, street suspension up under it. And so I literally got, long story short, I got tired of a buddy of ours running circles with us in a bone stock C5 Z06. So I thought one night, coming back from VIR, I said, as much as I'm loyal to the Mustang, and I've already put, I think at that point in time, like $49,000 in it, I said, it's time to switch to something else. Because Brandon's gonna go home tonight, he's gonna go inside, take a shower, go to bed. Tomorrow he's gonna drive that car to work. And I'm looking at mine in the rearview mirror on the trailer thinking of all the stuff I have to do before I go back to the track next month.
Yeah.
So I bought this Corvette to save me money, believe it or not. People don't believe that, but it's absolutely true. These cars were built for the DE King, you know?
I went to the Bondurant school a number of years ago, and the Z06 was the car that they were using. Mm-hmm. And we would get there in the morning. I was there for the whole week, and we would get there in the morning and we would start them like after the class. And we would run them, and we would leave them idling while we were eating lunch and doing our afternoon class. And then we'd go back out on the track, we'd just jump in them and drive them. Yeah. But they were bulletproof. They really were.
Absolutely.
They really were. How well do you know this car?
So I've had this since 2009, and it's been, I've driven it every year in lots of events except for 2018. 2018 is sat in a storage unit. While I ran a Spec Iron Mustang for a year, a buddy's car.
Yeah.
And so what happened is 2017 Nationals, I won both qualifying races, and I set the lap record and won the championship for TT3. We're on grid getting ready for ST3, of which I had won both races, walked away from everybody, and when I went to crank it up, smoke just boiled for a long ways. And we started before turn one, I was already in third place from first, and the car was down 30 horsepower later on. So that's that engine sitting over there. So the car, I was needed to change because by then I'd been running it for 7, 8, 9 years. Buddy of ours had a Spec Iron Mustang that he was trying to sell and didn't have any bites. So he and I struck an agreement that I would do whatever it took for $1. So it was like $1. I pretty much gave him the title of this as the deposit, but I ran his Mustang until I won a race, gave it some creed, and then he was able to sell it. Yeah. Because now I'd proven it was a winning car. Yeah. Kind of deal. So if you follow Darren Mock, that is the Mustang that Darren Mock, who's now in Trans Am, ran for years in Spec Iron. I think they still have that car.
Yeah. So with more than a decade driving this car, you feel you know it by now? I mean,
I do. I'll tell anybody the biggest change that occurred is in 2013. I went to big brakes, coilovers, and some other goodies. And that was a change, but the car still felt the same, no aero. Car still felt pretty well. In 2014, I went to aero and wing, splitter. I used to have, I got a diffuser and side skirts and everything else. And that was the biggest change. It took me the better part of 2 years to where I felt like, before I could drive it at the limit, I felt like I could drive it at the limit every time I took it out of the paddock. But it took me a long time before I felt like I was to the limit of the aero. Because the aero, I could feel it. For me, it was a different, I'm a kinesthetic driver, so I drive by the seat of my pants. and I could feel the difference enough that I knew I was not getting everything out of it. And by 2016 and 2017, I was back to winning stuff again, setting lap records and stuff like that.
Yeah. Any plans to move to anything else?
Well, now that my kids are grown, they're in their 20s, so college is behind me. Now I'm looking at retirement. So no, as much as I would like to, the reality is I don't need to spend more money on anything because, you know, retirement's more important. I've won 2 national championships. I don't have a lot to prove anymore.
Yeah.
You know? So that changes your perspective on a lot of things.
Well, the car's pretty much your identity at the track, right? People know the guy driving the red car.
Yeah. That's good or bad?
I mean, that's good because you're easy to find. You're usually at the front of the pack, right?
Thank you.
So take me through your career. What was your first foray into to racing of any kind?
I probably drag racing. Well, I drag raced for years. From 1999, I came back from overseas in '99, and I was in Shreveport, Louisiana, and bought a Mustang GT 91, and got into drag racing a little bit down there. I actually ran a buddy's car down the track at a Red River Raceway or something like that. I'd always had this bug for speed. I was the kid that got in trouble with cops and ran from cops and evaded cops and things like that. That's a different story that we can have over many beers, by all means. And I think you and I have talked about some of it before. So I drag raced up until I started doing the road course stuff, but I'd always wanted to do the road course. The drag racing is just easy to get into. For $20, you can go to the drag strip and run all you want to run in the afternoon. You know, round robin, everything else. I started running Fun Ford weekends and National Mustang Racing Association weekends. They had what's called, I think it was True Street and Wild Street, something like that. And your car had to be street legal, had to have a horn that worked, lights that worked, you had to have a title and driver's license. And they would spec your car, and then you went and drove 30 miles, police escorted, you're all in a parade, and you came back and you ran 3 back-to-back-to-back runs, and it was the average of your time. And you weren't looking to be an all-out winner. What they did is the all-out winner that ran back then, you know, the all-out winners are usually somebody running in the 8s. That's a street legal car running in the 8s. This is in the early 2000s, so now that's nothing. But back then that was a big deal. But they would, whoever got closest to the 9-second bracket but didn't go over it with their average would win the 9-second bracket, 10, 11. They did it all the way up to 16, seconds. So you could have a turd of a car and win the 15 or 16 second bracket. And you got just as much recognition as the guy that ran the 9-second bracket, right? With a fraction of the cost. So we did that, and that was fun. But I'd always wanted to do the road course stuff. The kicker was I was in the Chicago area at the time, and it just seemed to be difficult to get in with anybody. And this is the mid-2000s, so the track day stuff really exploded. What do you think, around 2010 or so?
Yeah.
I started doing DEs in 2006 after I moved to North Carolina. And I came up through the Tar Heels Sports Car Club DE ladder, started doing time trials with them.
Right, so it's driver education, and what tracks were you at?
Yeah, so Southeastern tracks. That first event ever was at Rockingham, which, now it's finally back on the circuit for NASA Southeast, but that's where I did my first ever event, which was really cool to drive on. And at that point in time, it hadn't been darkened for very long from NASCAR. So did that, VIR, Road Atlanta, Roebling Road, CMP, Carolina Motorsports Park, Rockingham, all these in the Southeast.
Yeah.
Did all those events. And then in 2010, I started running NASA events, NASA Southeast. And so that expanded and running with NASA Mid-Atlantic, still had VIR, still had those same tracks. But around that time frame is when we started identifying, as you come up through the DE ladder, you meet some of your best friends at 120 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
If you can trust that guy to be 6 inches off your bumper, and likewise, then he's going to become your best friend in life, right? And so, our group of people, we started doing bucket list tracks. So, I've run Watkins Glen, Mid-Ohio, Circuit of the Americas, Sebring, lots and lots of tracks in between, Barber, all of them. So, my bucket list tracks now are 14 hours away instead of 8 or 9 hours away. So they're, it's pretty cool. But so did that. Started time trialing really seriously. 2010, 11, 12. 2012, I went to 2011. I went to the Nationals running time trials at Mid Ohio. Placed 6 out of 14, and then got the car caged 2012, went back for nationals, was in what was it called, Performance Touring A, PTA, still with NASA, and I led the first half of the race, and a slipping clutch cost me the championship, so I held on third, so podium, and then 2014 at Road Atlanta, so pretty much after 2012, the focus was racing, because for me, that's the bug. I like the competition. I like the chess match. I've always said I'm not the fastest time trialer out there. I'm not the fastest driver, and I think you've got to be a very focused, very fast driver to be able to get everything you can get out of a car for one lap. And it's maybe because I have too much mechanical sympathy, to actually beat on a car that hard for one lap, or maybe I just don't have the focus for it. I don't know. But I like the 30 to 45 minute chess match that goes on. But so started running, racing, and through the last 10, 12 years, I've raced WRC, NASA, of course, Chump Car, did Lemons, and I say that with a certain look, but so I've run a lot of that stuff, and it had a lot of fun. AER was another one I've run with. So we've run 24-hour enduro races, 7s, 14s, everything in between. So it's a lot of fun. So just put me in a car. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people that listen to us or watch our videos, they're in that mindset of, I'd like to do that, but they're waiting. They're
Sure.
waiting to have enough money. They're waiting for their kids to get out of school. They're waiting for whatever they're
Yep.
waiting for. What advice would you give someone starting out? Like they're sitting there going, I'd like to do that. I'd like to be that guy.
So you don't need this car to do that. You don't need the fastest car out there. The guy that's driving the $2,500 Miata is having just as much fun as you are in a $100,000 Vet, Viper, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have to have 1,000,000 horsepower. Literally, if you have a mechanically sound street vehicle, and I do recommend that it be a manual, but today's automatics are not going to overheat and stuff like that. But you can go out and have just as much fun in your daily driven street car for the first couple of events than anything else. So,
and tell me about those events. What would you recommend?
yeah, so I would recommend you find a good club, a good local club that has good structured driver education. So a club that's going to put an instructor in the passenger seat with you. A good club is going to have 2 to 4 hours of classroom time each day or throughout the weekend of a track event, and you're going to get 2 to 3 hours of track time over the course of the weekend. So a good club is going to be like that. You can go out and just start turning laps as a beginner, but you're never going to learn anything, and you're not going to learn the safe way to do it. You're going to abuse your car, you're going to wear yourself out and stuff like that. So I highly recommend you get with a club, and there's plenty of them out there. Motorsport Reg is one of the best resources to go find an event that you can find your way to. And a typical event is going to be $200 to $400 in track fees for the weekend, but you're going to get a couple hours worth of track time and some classroom time, and then your hotels. But you can always camp at the track. Most tracks will let you camp for $35. You know that you don't have to have the big $200,000 motor coach rig and all the other stuff. Just sleep out of the back of the car. But so the first couple of years you do this, you don't need to spend a lot. I started this hobby right here when my kids were doing competitive gymnastics and I was out of state, 6-8 times a year. I was doing something once a month with my youngest daughter. My oldest daughter was in dance. They hadn't gone to college yet, so I was saving for their college and everything else. And my wife and I worked full time. So you can start this on a lower budget. You don't have to go stupid with it right off the bat. So, and the other thing is you'll learn more by starting slower. I promise you'll learn more. And so if you want a dedicated track car, a lot of people look down on them, but the answer is always Miata or a street-driven Mustang, or one of those old Cadillacs that's the CTSVs that people don't want anymore. I'm joking with it, but or even a Corvette. You can buy a C5 Corvette for less than $10,000. You know, if you want something you can drive back and forth to work every day and go take to the track. But there are a ton of cars, the Acuras, the Hondas, all those cars, sub $10,000 car is plenty and all you need for the track.
There you go. That's great.